second part, which is PBL process. Now, the PBL process has two major components. First being the trigger, and the last is the discussion. Under the trigger component, you will have a particular technique being employed to brainstorm this trigger, which is the vehicle for learning to take place. This technique is known as T-FILA. I will address the components in detail in the next slide, but for the time being, T stands for terminology, F stands for facts, I stands for idea, L stands for learning needs, and A is for action. Now I would like you all to concentrate on the L, which is the learning needs. Now the learning needs is the end product that should come out of this trigger session. Now if you look carefully, the learning needs is actually the learning outcome, which in a classical way of teaching, if you were to conduct a lecture, every lecture will have a learning outcome, and this is the learning outcome, in the sense that learning needs is derived by the student and not given to them. Very important, the learning needs must be derived by the students and not given to them. Now as for A, which is the action, now this component will come up to the next important component of the PBL itself, which is self-directed learning. Now the self-directed learning, the students will actually use the learning needs which was obtained in the first session, which is the trigger, and the learning needs will be done during the SDL session by the students. Now this will be in preparation for the next session, which is the discussion. The discussion part would be done in a separate day. If trigger was done on Monday, then the discussion should be done either Friday or the following week. The reason for this is ample of time should be given for SDL to take place. Students will go out to do research on the matters pertaining to the learning needs and come back on the second session, which is the discussion, and they will discuss the trigger in detail. Now, over the years, through conducting PBL, I have come up with a technique for the discussion part. If you were to ask yourself, what do you do during discussion, then you can have this same method being taught to the students. There are two key things that are done during discussion. First is the students need to share what they have gained out of the research in the learning needs that they have got from the trigger. Sharing whatever materials that they have, what they know in detail, and that need to be shared among the group members. The second part is, while going through the learning needs, a good student would find that there are some elements that they do not understand. So therefore, these are learning opportunities where the students should come back with proper questions to address this. And I would call this as the ask of the discussion, where the students need to ask what they do not know, share what you know, and ask what you do not know.